feature presentation.
Welcome back to another Untitled Sundance review. I am one of your hosts, Matt Rohrbeck, alongside he's allergic to tomatoes, but he is tomato meter approved, Eric Marchin.
Matt, I think we're a couple of entrepreneurs.
Yeah, baby. Today we are reviewing Molly Gordon and Nick Lieberman's Theater Camp, starring a large cast featuring Molly Gordon, Ben Platt, Noah Galvin, Jimmy Tatro, Patti Harrison, Ao Edebiri, Amy Sedaris, Caroline Aaron, Nathan Lee Graham, Owen Thiele, Alan Kim, and more. Eric, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Matt. We've been talking a lot about sort of, very serious-minded movies and some stuff that's been a
With
little bit
heavy
lighter.
themes, but yeah.
But yeah, it's nice to kind of flip the script a little bit and have fun and talk about something that is a little bit more easier going and also enjoyable, and a movie that you need, I think, during any festival. We've talked about this during TIFF as well, right? Where like you see a lot of stuff that is good, but it's also, more absorbing.
Takes a toll on you because it's a lot mentally and stuff like that to go through so many films with heavy themes or dark tone or just, things that you really need to be focused on and pay attention to and dissect. But sometimes you just hit one of these movies in a festival and it hits you at the right time, the right place. It's the perfect thing you need in that moment. And whether it's festival hyperbole or not, it could go either way, but it just hits you in that right spot and you get that, that perfect thing you need at the right time. And Theater Camp was definitely that for me during Sundance this year.
It's a burst of energy. Like it's just one of those movies that is just like, I really do hope that they release a soundtrack or a vinyl of
absolutely,
of the score and the music that's incorporated into this, because it really is a showstopper. I do worry a little bit if it will, because it was picked up by Searchlight and it is going to get a
I thought it was going to go to streaming.
No, it's going theatrical, and
good, because I think with a crowd it should be fun.
Yeah, it's just that the one thing with
if you
Sundance,
see it with the right crowd.
Yes, the one thing with Sundance though is that Sundance has always been kind of somewhat notorious for a lot of, for every, Little Miss Sunshine or Coda, there's a Hamlet 2. And I really like Hamlet 2, but the problem with Hamlet 2 is that when that was picked up by Focus Features, that was going to be a big deal, and it just nothing happened. And that does, like, it's like the Happy Texas, thing.
Times,
and I could see this happening with Theater Camp because it is such a niche genre of music camp, but specifically talking about Broadway in the same way we discussed a little bit
kids,
with Tick Tick Boom, I think, as well, where like a lot of the references and homages come from a place where if you grew up
in
with
that world,
you might get more out of it, where I think the broader kind of humor and themes, I think people will get it, because like if you like Christopher Guest, or if you like, Wet Hot American Summer, those movies also are very niche in their terms of their humor, in terms of the people that will laugh at those things. But it is a very delightful comedy, and it's one that, like, again, I don't know if it's the best movie of the year by any means, but it's something where it's like, you know what, you need this movie every now and then. You need something that's fun and humorous and people you can root for, and situations that aren't necessarily always about capitalism, even though there is a little bit of that in this as well, but just
it's cartoony, but in a fun way.
And still very likable performances.
Yeah, dude, I absolutely loved this. I like I mentioned, I think I just saw it at the right time. I was having kind of I'm with you when you brought up the kind of what Sundance is, right? And what movies come out of Sundance. You do get that handful of movies that get picked up that have some commercial appeal and they play to audience. Some are huge hits, some are kind of, classics, some just kind of fall to the wayside. For me, Sundance, at least the couple that we've participated in now this year, especially, and I guess like any festival, it's not just a Sundance thing. Like I go through and I find like, oh man, they have to program a lot of films. Not all of these are working for me, but you find those few nuggets that really, really do. And theater camp was such a delightful surprise because I feel like it wasn't even on our initial short list. Because I think both you and I, after Dear Evan Hansen, we were kind of like with Ben Platt being like, I don't want to go anywhere near him, right?
Yeah.
Like I can't. And it's not that Dear Evan Hansen was his fault or anything like that. I'm sure he was great on the original Broadway run of it and things like that. But I think like that him and a thing about musical theater and theater kids, I was like, I don't know, this could be obnoxious. And I tweeted this out that theater kids will be obnoxious, but we should let them be obnoxious about this because I think it's absolutely wonderful. Like, I do think it has that broad appeal that it could be funny to anyone. Although, again, I say this over and over again on our shows. I think comedy is the most subjective genre, especially it's so hard, I feel like, to review a comedy because as objective as me and you want to be in our reviews, I mean, I've always kind of had that subjective lens on my movie reviews, but like, I feel like comedy is so subjective. Like everyone has a different sense of humor. You're not going to like something. That doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It just doesn't mean that it connected with you. And I worry like you that this movie is maybe for a very niche audience, right? Like someone who you either worked in theater in high school, like worked on the school plays, whether you are a theater kid and your whole life was this, much like a lot of the people in this, I think those kids will absolutely love it. Whether you have someone in your family, like I grew up with my sister being a musical theater kid and a theater kid. So I was around it a lot, and being in the arts, both you and I, Eric, like I think you worked on theater in high school, right? In the tech
Oh yeah,
department.
in
And
for
like,
Little Orphan Annie, that was
it's
my first,
nice.
and my brother Kyle too. Like
Yeah.
my brother Kyle even more so. Like
Yeah.
he knows and is friends with theater people, so it's
Same,
like
right? Yeah.
you understand the personalities, you
And
understand the drama,
the
and
in jokes and the drama and like all
yes,
of that stuff. And like there is a lot of that. And I feel like if you're in, you will lose your goddamn mind for this movie. Like it will be like gut bustingly, like really, really funny. Like my wife and I, Nevis and I watched this together and we had like Nevis loves this movie. Like she absolutely adores it. She's like, if this isn't in her top, couple movies of the year by the end of the year, she'll be very, very surprised. She absolutely adored this. I think my sister will go crazy for this. I have a friend, Ryan Hancock, that will go bananas for this movie. And I just feel like, I don't know, from everything from the very simple plot of, a typical camp movie of like, we got to save the camp, but then like in that very cartoony way. And Patty Harrison just absolutely kills it as a rival camp director that's trying to put them out of business. I love when she pops up. She was great in Together.
and a recent
MVP
episode of
Jimmy
She-Hulk as well.
Yeah, she was in She-Hulk. She was wonderful there. MVP Jimmy Tatro. We said this is going to be the Jimmy Tatro appreciation show.
Just the way he
is
dances is
he
incredible.
is phenomenal. He's so funny and underrated. If you haven't watched American Vandal, like it's so fucking good. And anytime I see him pop up in something, he just cracks me up. I think Molly Gordon and Ben Platt are fantastic as these two best friends, and even kind of where their relationship goes. And the movie does tackle some interesting themes of when you're young and growing up, and especially in this industry where you're trying to get your big break and things like that. And but you do work at this camp and still care about the kids, but you want to focus on your career because everyone going to these camps and working on these camps wants that big break, right? And I feel like the movie does such a good job with all of that. Not to mention the look of the movie, I absolutely loved in the first couple minutes. Like, I'm a sucker for, stylistic choices, like looking like, I don't know whether they shot it on film or they just shot it digitally and made it look like film, but I think it looks awesome. And I thought it was a period piece at first. Like I thought it was like Wet Hot American Summer
But
or
Jimmy
something like
Tatro
that
being a
until
crypto
yes,
bro.
I know that's what happened, dude. I thought it was a period piece. I thought it took place in like the 70s, right? Because like I thought it was going to be one of those movies of like a lot of these camp kind of movies is like, this feels like such an antiquated I didn't really go to camps growing up. Maybe camps still exist, like sleepaway camps like this, where you go away for the entire summer. But it feels like such a 70s and 80s thing to me
Yeah.
that, like, when the movie starts and it's got this grainy cinematography, it's got the 1:7:8 aspect ratio, I think, with the black bars on the side. I could be wrong there. I don't know. But it's just, I'm like, oh shit, this is a period piece. And then you have Jimmy Tatro come in vlogging and being a crypto bro. And I'm like, oh no, this is way different than I thought. And then just like the heart and soul that I think was poured into this movie. And I think that's why it works so well, where you have Molly Gordon and Nick Lieberman, who have been best friends since they were kids. And you have Ben Platt and Noah Galvin, who are also friends with Molly Gordon and Nick Lieberman, like this foursome of them who grew up in this world and really care about this world, and the kids that want to succeed in this world, that you can really see, like, with archival footage and the humor and everything, that everyone just like really kind of went out on a limb and said, like, we gotta make it. Seems like a bunch of friends got together and made a movie over a weekend, which is not a bad thing though in this
Well,
case, because
it's
I feel
well
like,
the shaping of the narrative with all of
yeah,
that, the archival footage, but even just like photos, and like it feels so well thought out because it's real. And you could say, oh well, it's really self-absorbed and pretentious and narcissistic, and part of it is. I mean, part of that's kind of
sure.
what theater camp is. But the way that these characters and the story kind of fits perfectly within that milieu of classic kind of throwback 70s and 80s camp movies, and a lot of which are very kind of male dominated machismo. You think of like Meatballs or any of those kind of movies. This kind of has a new spin on it, and it's still very funny. The eccentricity of the performances and the personalities, both working together but also clashing, and the frustration of kind of putting together a production is funny. But then on top of that, also having kind of the looming foreclosure that's threatening the camp, and then having Jimmy Tatro, whose mother played by in a
Amy
cameo by
Sedaris.
Sedaris, Joan, who he comes in and kind of is taking over, and kind of is like the exact opposite of who you would expect to be able to kind of figure out both the art side and the commerce thing, because it's almost like he's like the movie producer coming in to work on a production that's been kind of like struggling, and he's trying to also understand you know where he fits into all of this, and maybe learns a little bit more about his own mother. But like there's like this amazing audition process where everybody's kind of filling out roles, and he's couldn't be less interested in what is going on until he hears someone sing Post Malone,
Post Malone.
and the way his
It's
body
so funny.
language lights up, it's incredible. He has this comedic timing and personality that are working in tandem together in such a phenomenal way, that when you're watching him kind of interact with people that are just extremely talented and are on this different level, it's just this really great culture clash. But it's also very funny just to see him trying to learn. And I really loved the arc of the Glenn character. I think that is one of
Yeah,
those storylines that is beautifully portrayed, understated, um
totally
and
agree.
and somebody that you are rooting for. And it's like you always love a character that has so much to give and never gets
No
their
one's paying
due.
attention to
But
them.
then
Yeah.
when you realize how incredible they are, but also how again egoless they are as well,
I love
it's
the recurring bit of
incredible.
being invisible kind of
Yeah.
thing, of like no one paying attention to you, and just like how you can kind of, it's great. And yeah, their arc is fantastic in this. Yeah, I mean, right. I love the mockumentary style too. Something that could be overdone and things like that. Like but it has that Christopher Guest. That's the easy, way to compare it. But like those eccentric characters, the over the top characters, where nothing is quite like, you can believe that these are real people, but like
Chantel,
also, yeah,
Chantel.
but they're all caricatures of people you would know from the theater world, right?
Yeah.
And from the arts world. And like they're all heightened to an extent where no one is acting sort of like how a real human being would, but people who are sort of like them in real life, right? Which makes it just funny. And that's what Christopher Guest was so great at, is like these over the top characters where it's showing you like it's reality because it's a documentary, but you have these absolutely ridiculous performances and over the top, and theater is perfect for that, right? Because then it is even more believable because everyone, even these kids that they have at the camp, are all over the top, and the way they act that is like above their age and things like that because they're trying so hard to be taken seriously in this world. Shout out to Ao Edebiri. Is that how you pronounce her name?
From The
Is
Bear,
that
right?
from The Bear?
Oh,
She is
she's
wonderful.
amazing.
She is so good, and I'm so happy for her because like she kills it in The Bear, and she just got cast in Thunderbolts, and we don't know who she's playing in that as well, but she's definitely like going to have a huge kind of couple years because like I
Her
feel like she has. Go
deadpan
ahead.
delivery is
Yeah.
incredible, and the way that like she's also somebody that's being
Have
brought
you
in that
watched The Bear yet?
no, I haven't yet, and I'm
She's
going to, and
it's
I'm
similar in
excited
that. She's
because
great in that.
the way that it's like she's like Jimmy Tatro's character a little bit as well, where it's like she's brought in by him because they got funding
Just
for some of the
it's the
courses,
only
and
person that would take the job or
yeah, because
whatever.
it's regional hiring, and the way that she interacts with these kids, and specifically like the mask training is incredible.
Yeah.
But again, like I think you just touched on something that's really important. This is also a really wonderful example of a safe space for those that kind of are outsiders, that are people that maybe have a hard time fitting in elsewhere, and you kind of feel the love and passion that this community creates and cultivates for each other, and
Yeah.
the warmth and complete emotion of having that space, and feeling like you're not alone, and feeling like you have other people that love the same kind of weird sort of stuff that you're into, and can reference the theater in a way that can both exemplify how you feel as a person, but also how other people might have a new perspective on something, and like even just the creation of Joan Still, this play that they're
Yeah.
putting
And
on,
this original musical. Yeah.
in tribute of Amy Sedaris's character. It is so, it is such a joy, it is such a pleasure
Yeah.
watching this movie, and you just can't help but have a smile on your face as you're watching it. And this says a lot, especially going from like watching Dear Evan Hansen and having post trauma of like thinking
That's
like
what I mean.
I don't
We
want
saw
to watch
Ben
anything with
Platt.
Platt.
We saw Ben Platt theater movie and we are like, ooh, let's stay away from that one. And then like maybe shout out to Joey Noel because I think I was from Kind of Funny because I think we were DMing about Sundance, and she was asking which movies we were seeing and things like that. And I think it might have been on her list of films, which is what kind of put it on my radar. And then I think I just, I was like, all right, Joey has great taste. I'm like, and I'm gonna give it a shot because I wanted to see some of the stuff that Joey was seeing, and it wasn't even on our short list of movies. And then I threw it in there at the last second, and I was like, let's just give this a shot. It's 94 minutes. It's a comedy. Like, what? It can't be worse than Dear Evan Hansen. So like, let's just give it a shot. So I think it's absolutely wonderful. Again, might not be your thing. So we're talking very highly on it. Like I feel like if you're from this background, if you did theater in high school, if you were on the tech thing in theater in high school, if
If
you
you're a
have
crypto bro.
yeah, if you're a crypto bro or a vlogger or a YouTube star, you might laugh at Jimmy Tatro's character. But if you really have that theater background, or someone in your family does, and you've been around their friends and people that they've hung out with, I think you will get something from this. If you're not, I think you might have varying success from the humor, right? Like I don't know if it will be your thing. You might just think it's middle of the road average, but like I don't know if it hits, and it hit for me, and I think it's fantastic. Um, I'm at a 4 out of 5 right now, but that could easily be a 4.5. And I even if I could even go to a 5. It just depends. Like it was one of those movies where, oh, another great point I wanted to bring up, and I will give full credit to my wife Nevis for saying this when we were watching it. I think my only like criticism of the movie is that I love the 94-minute runtime, but she mentioned, she's like, this would be a great TV show.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it would overstay its welcome if it was, but this is a summer camp that's supposed to be taking place over an entire summer, correct? And I feel like if you spent a little bit more time with these characters and developing those relationships, and we mentioned Glenn's storyline and Rebecca Diane and Amos's, which are Molly Gordon and Ben Platt's characters, like I think if you spent more time developing that and bringing Jimmy Tatro in and Patty Harrison's rival camp and all of those characters, I feel like could have had their own episodes, right? And this might have been even better if it was. I don't want the movie to be any longer, but like I do feel like this could be like a backdoor pilot to like a TV show even, right?
Or a
And I
mini
don't know whether you could,
series.
or a mini series, right? And like I would have really loved this as like a 6 to 9 episode, or even just like 5 to 6 episode mini series focusing on maybe those different characters. And I feel like that could have been really great, because the one criticism I have is it does go pretty quick through all of that. And in the 94-minute runtime, it is at a rapid pace. I still think it completely works and I really, really like it. But yeah, Neva stopped partway through and she was like, this would be a great TV show. And I'm like, you absolutely nailed it. Like, I think it might even be like a better TV show than a movie. So I'm at a 4 right now. But I really, really like this movie. And I think on a rewatch, if it holds up on that rewatch, I think it's a 4.5 for me, but I'll stick with a 4 for now.
Yeah, Theater Camp follows in the footsteps of Christopher Guest, which is to say, this is an often hilarious and heartfelt mockumentary. And when you're watching it, you're thinking, to Nevis's point, like, I would have loved to have seen more with the rival theater camp, and the way that
Yeah.
they're kind of setting that up at the beginning of the movie, you think like, oh, that's going to be a major plot point, with maybe you'll see like the more corporate side of theater, and that never really happens. And it reminded me weirdly of like when I was
Other
a
than
kid.
a dance with a great DJ sequence.
Yeah, which is amazing. Again, Jimmy Tatro's just on fire in this movie. But like, it reminded me as a kid, like I used to go to a public school that was right next to a Catholic school, and there were times, especially during the winter, where those two schools, those students would clash and fight, and there would be snowball fights, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, they're setting something up there, and it never really happens other than that one kind of mixer. And another thing that is kind of wonderful about this, that is a thematic connection for the festival, another movie we both really liked, You Hurt My Feelings, the relationship between Molly Gordon and Ben Platt, the codependency of people, and sort of looking at that, I think is really fascinating, because that's another thing that You Hurt My Feelings does do with Dawn and Beth. And so there's something there where it's like, somebody maybe is afraid to hurt the other person's feelings in order to move on with their life, and then the other person maybe isn't really sure that they want to, you know go on and do something else, and the procrastination of that. And yeah, so you're watching this thing, and there's so much there that you could say like, oh well, it's a little slight, and it's only kind of hitting on these things in a way
Yeah.
to kind of get to that runtime, because it is a very streamlined, lean, mean kind of movie. Like, it goes through the paces so quickly, it introduces
Yeah.
you to so many characters that you could probably spend more time with. But saying all that, I think it does so in a way that it's just a pure joy to watch, and you
Yeah.
never feel like the movie overstays its welcome. And if you are on its wavelength, I think you will have so much fun with it. And it is a film that, with the right crowd, I think is going to be just an amazing time at the theater. Like, it's one of those movies where it's like, if you watch it at, TIFF, for example, and you have that right mindset coming in,
Yeah.
and the enjoyment of it, I think it's going to be a blast. And
I
it's a
would have
movie I
loved to
can't
see it
wait
with
to
a
see
crowd.
again, and maybe
Yeah.
with a crowd. So,
And sorry, your rating.
oh yes, 4 out of 5.
Hell yeah. I'm so close to giving it a 4.5, everyone, but I will wait and watch. I will watch this again. Once it gets a theatrical release, I would love to see it in a theater, and hopefully with a crowd. I might skip the press screening and then go see it with a crowd or something like that, because I do think yeah, if it hits, it will hit with people, and I hope it does. Searchlight picking it up and saying it'll give it a theatrical release, I think is like, that's Disney with some confidence there, because not a lot of Searchlight stuff gets theatrical anymore. Like,
Well, it's a
Searchlight
bit
stuff
of both, right?
usually,
Like, it's like a film by
yeah,
film
it's like,
basis. So
but a lot of it goes to Disney Plus. So when I heard that they picked this up, I was like, oh, are they just gonna have, or sorry, a Hulu in the US, Disney Plus here in Canada. But like, I was like, oh, is this gonna be a streaming play? And I could see it as a streaming play, but I'm so glad that they'll probably put a little bit of weight behind it and give it a theatrical release, as you know, as much as they do for Searchlight stuff. So that's awesome to hear. Thank you all for listening and watching. We really do appreciate it. You can check out all of our Sundance reviews. I won't list them all, but there's plenty of them right here on Untitled Movie Reviews. We have about 10 to 15 reviews that you guys can go check out. We also have a show if you are watching HBO's The Last of Us. We have a show called The Cast of Us, which is an untitled HBO Last of Us podcast. Episode 3, long time, just dropped this past Sunday. One of the best episodes of television in a ironically long time. So go please check out that episode of the podcast. You can find it on YouTube and all podcast services. And we have a new episode of the Untitled Movie Podcast where we talk about the Oscar nominees as well as Critics' Choice Awards winners. So go check that out. One-stop shop for everything. Head over to Letterboxd. It's Untitled_movies. You can find us there. And as always, my name is Matt Rohrbeck. You can find more of my work around the internet, but mostly at UntitledMoviePodcast.com. And you can follow me on all those social medias at Matt Rohrbeck.
And I'm Eric Martian. You can find more of my video reviews on rogerstv.com/cinemascene and on the social medias at EM6211.
Until next time.
Joan Still.
Bye, everyone.